What about Bourne? You still think you can bring him in?
So here's the situation with Jason Bourne 6. While Matt Damon is still excited to return as the iconic spy, things are kind of up in the air right now. Late in 2023, the buzz really started picking up when director Edward Berger, fresh off his Oscar win for All Quiet on the Western Front, was said to be stepping in to direct the next Bourne film. Damon was reportedly in talks to come back, and everything seemed to be lining up nicely. But since then, not a lot has actually happened. Recently, Berger was doing press for his new thriller Conclave, and someone asked him what's going on with Bourne 6. His response didn't exactly fill fans with confidence. He didn't just say there weren't any updates, he actually admitted that he's not sure he's even doing the movie anymore. It's not currently on his schedule, and he seemed a bit unsure about what his next project will even be. So at this point, it's hard to say if he's still attached or if things have shifted behind the scenes. That's kind of a big deal, because this is the first real time Berger has spoken out about his role in the film. Back in February, Damon himself had said that Berger was definitely on board and that the new movie would be based on an idea Berger came up with, which Damon apparently thought was great. Looking at Berger's track record, he usually writes most of the films he directs, so it made sense for people to assume he'd also be writing the script for this one. But here's where it gets murky. Berger has other projects in the works, like Conclave and a Netflix movie adaptation of The Ballad of a Small Prayer. So maybe he's just been too busy to dive into Bourne 6 in any real way, or maybe the studio's quietly looking for someone else to take the reins while Berger focuses on these other projects. It wouldn't be the first time Berger stepped away from a high-profile franchise. Not too long ago, he was rumored to be directing Ocean's 14, but that turned out to be just gossip. So although Damon's past comments made it seem like Berger's involvement with Bourne was locked in, this long silence followed by such a vague update does raise the question: are they both still fully committed to making this happen? Now, whether or not Berger sticks around, it's probably too early to panic. Sure, long delays aren't exactly a good sign for a sequel, especially when it's already been 8 years since the last Bourne film, but Berger might just be caught up with his other work. If Damon's still eager and wants to keep Berger on board, this might just take a while longer than fans hoped. But there's another issue that Bourne 6 will need to tackle, something bigger than casting or scheduling. The action movie landscape has changed a lot since Jason Bourne first burst onto the scene in 2002. When the Bourne Identity came out, it completely shook up the genre. Audiences hadn't really seen anything like it. The intense hand-to-hand combat, the raw emotional arc, and the super gritty tone were a total shift from the over-the-top, explosion-filled action films from the late 90s. Bourne felt more grounded and more real, and the franchise quickly became a hit. 2 more films followed in the next 5 years, and the trilogy became a staple of modern action cinema. But that was then. Since 2014, we've had John Wick, and that franchise changed the action game all over again. While Bourne helped redefine the genre in the early 2000s, John Wick picked up where it left off and pushed things to a whole new league. The stunts, the fight choreography, and the world building in the Wick movies are just on another level. People expect more now. So if Jason Bourne is coming back, it's going to have to prove that it can still compete. And let's be honest, that's not going to be easy. One of the things that gave John Wick the edge is that its director, Chad Stahelski, is a veteran stuntman. He knows the ins and outs of making action look incredible on screen. The fights are smooth, creative, and shot in a way that lets you really appreciate the skills of the performers. That's something a lot of action movies struggle with, including the Bourne series. Back when Bourne was fresh and new, its shaky cam fight scenes were considered groundbreaking. The fast editing and up-close angles made it feel chaotic and intense, like you were right there in the middle of the brawl. But over time, that style started to wear thin. A bunch of other action movies copied the formula, and audiences got tired of not being able to tell what was going on. Now, in a post-John Wick world, fight scenes need to be clear and stylish. You want to see the movies, not just feel the blur of motion. So if Jason Bourne is going to make a comeback, the filmmakers will need to rethink how they shoot action. The shaky cam might have worked back in 2002, but today it might feel more outdated than innovative. They'll need to strike a balance, staying true to the gritty realism that made Bourne so popular while updating the action to match current expectations. Of course, there's also the question of casting. While Damon has been the face of the franchise for over 2 decades, he's not getting any younger, and the studio has already tried replacing him once. When Jeremy Renner stepped in for the Bourne Legacy in 2012, it didn't exactly go over well. Fans weren't ready to let go of Damon, and the movie just didn't have the same spark. So if the franchise ever gets rebooted, they'll have to be careful with who takes on the role next. Right now, there are rumors floating around that Universal no longer holds the rights to the franchise, and other studios like Netflix, Apple, and Skydance are in talks. If a reboot is in the cards, that opens up a whole new set of questions, like who would be the next Bourne? Names like Will Poulter and Gabriel Bateman have been suggested, but others have pitched ideas like Xolo Maridueña or Henry Golding. Both could bring a different energy to the character. Xolo's got emotional depth and martial arts experience, and Henry Golding could bring some suave, grounded intensity to the role. Meanwhile, one more piece of the puzzle is Nikki Parsons, played by Julia Stiles. She's been part of the franchise since the very beginning, and her character became more important as the story progressed. But her fate was pretty much sealed in the last movie. She died, which doesn't leave much room for a return. Still, Stiles recently spoke about the possibility of coming back and said if it happened, it'd have to be some kind of prequel. She joked that she's had this same conversation every time a new Bourne movie gets discussed and doesn't think a return is likely, but she's still grateful for the experience and the opportunities the franchise gave her. So, where does all that leave us? Well, the short answer is, we're in wait-and-see mode. There's still interest in the Bourne franchise from Damon, and Berger's involvement isn't completely ruled out, but between the evolving action landscape, the need to refresh the storytelling style, and uncertainty behind the scenes, it's going to take a clear vision, and maybe a bold new direction, to make Bourne 6 stand out. Whether it ends up being a sequel with Damon or a total reboot with a new face, the next chapter of the franchise needs to recognize that the genre has changed. It can't just rely on nostalgia. If it does come back, it has to earn its place in a world where John Wick is setting the bar, and that means new tricks, better fights, and a story that feels just as smart and sharp as the original trilogy. Let's just hope it doesn't take another 8 years to get there. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Your suggestions for future videos are always welcome in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay in the loop. And if you want, you can share your thoughts about this video in the comments.